Have you ever felt the thin boundary between reality and nightmare blur? This is not just a story of shadows in the dark, but of secrets that spiral into an abyss. Keep watching. You might never look at the ordinary the same way again. In the vibrant chaos of Queens, New York, 2009, life was a relentless grind for 25-year-old police officer Gilberto Valle. By day, he patrolled the bustling streets facing the city's endless challenges. By night, he returned to a modest home he shared with his elderly father. To his neighbors, Gilberto seemed like the embodiment of duty, a young man dedicating his life to service. Yet behind closed doors, his life told a different story. The job was draining. Each day ended with exhaustion that left Gilberto collapsing into bed, unable to muster the energy for anything beyond the bare minimum. Socializing was out of the question. After grueling shifts, he felt like a shell of himself, too depleted to connect with others. Yet, in his quieter moments, loneliness gnawed at him. The thought of coming home to an empty house after his father's passing, a reality he knew wasn't far off, kept him awake at night. Determined to change his trajectory, Gilberto turned to technology for a solution. Online dating seemed like the perfect escape from the limitations of his reality. He crafted a profile on a popular dating site, hoping to meet someone who could fill the void in his life. That's when he met Kathleen Mangan. Kathleen, an elementary school teacher in her late 20s, had recently moved to East Harlem. With a bright smile and an infectious laugh, she exuded a warmth that drew people in. Kathleen was the type of person who saw the good in others, even when they struggled to see it in themselves. She had joined the dating site more out of curiosity than expectation, but was immediately intrigued by Gilberto's sincerity. Their connection was electric. Late-night conversations stretched into the early hours, filled with shared dreams, jokes, and stories about their pasts. Gilberto found Kathleen's positivity refreshing, a stark contrast to the heaviness of his daily life. Kathleen, in turn, admired Gilberto's dedication to his job and his father. It wasn't long before their virtual connection blossomed into something tangible. Their first date, a simple coffee outing, felt like a scene from a romantic comedy. They talked for hours, oblivious to the world around them. Within months, Gilberto and Kathleen became inseparable. They moved into a cozy one-bedroom apartment near 3rd Avenue, where their love story seemed to unfold effortlessly. For Kathleen, these were the happiest days of her life. "We laughed all the time," she later recalled. "He was kind, attentive, and always made me feel special." But like all fairy tales, theirs wasn't destined to last. Beneath the surface of their seemingly perfect relationship lay cracks that neither of them could yet see. The turning point came with an unexpected announcement. Kathleen, with equal parts excitement and trepidation, revealed that she was pregnant. She had imagined this moment countless times, envisioning Gilberto's face lighting up with joy. But his reaction was anything but joyous. His expression shifted from shock to outright fear. "I can't do this," he muttered, pacing the room like a caged animal. Kathleen was heartbroken. This wasn't the reaction she had hoped for. She spent the following days in a haze of uncertainty, wondering if their relationship could survive. But just as she began to lose hope, Gilberto surprised her. He reached out to her parents, assuring them of his commitment. "I'll do right by her," he promised, his voice steady and resolute. Their daughter Josephine was born in the spring of 2012. The tiny apartment buzzed with the sounds of a new life. Baby cries, lullabies, and the soft coos of a proud mother. Kathleen hoped that Josephine's arrival would reignite the spark in Gilberto. And for a while, it did. He proposed shortly after Josephine's birth, and they married in June of that year in a small, intimate ceremony. Josephine, their 9-month-old bundle of joy, was the unofficial guest of honor. For a fleeting moment, Kathleen felt like their family was whole. "I thought we were on the right track," she later said. He seemed happy, like he'd finally settled into his role as a father and husband. But happiness, as Kathleen would learn, is often temporary. Gilberto's late-night habits returned with a vengeance. He would come home from his shifts, retreat to the small office they had set up, and lose himself in hours of screen time. At first, Kathleen assumed he was unwinding from the stress of work. But as the months went by, his behavior grew more concerning. He rarely interacted with Josephine, leaving most of the parenting to Kathleen. "It was like he was there, but not really there," she recalled. One night after putting Josephine to bed, Kathleen decided to confront him. She walked into the office to find him hunched over his laptop, his face illuminated by the glow of the screen. When he noticed her, he quickly closed the laptop, muttering something about just checking sports scores. But Kathleen wasn't convinced. The guilt on his face was unmistakable. The incident planted a seed of doubt in Kathleen's mind. Over the next few days, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. One morning after Gilberto left for work, she decided to satisfy her curiosity. She opened his laptop and began to explore. What she found would haunt her forever. At first, it was nothing more than a series of search history entries, cryptic phrases, and links to unfamiliar websites. But as Kathleen delved deeper, the true nature of Gilberto's online activities became horrifyingly clear. The websites he visited weren't just inappropriate, they were deeply disturbing. They depicted scenarios so grotesque and unsettling that Kathleen felt physically ill. Her initial shock quickly turned to anger. How could the man she loved, the father of her child, harbor such dark secrets? She confronted Gilberto that evening, her hands trembling as she held up the evidence. "What is this?" she demanded, her voice breaking. Gilberto's reaction was immediate. He broke down, tears streaming down his face as he stammered out an explanation. "It's just stress," he pleaded. "I didn't mean anything by it." Kathleen wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that the man she had fallen in love with was still in there somewhere. But the images and words she had seen were burned into her memory. They couldn't be undone. Gilberto promised to change. He vowed to seek therapy, to be a better husband and father. For a while, Kathleen tried to hold on to hope. But the trust between them was shattered, and no amount of promises could rebuild it. As the summer of 2012 wore on, Kathleen noticed more changes in Gilberto. He spent even more time on his computer, often late into the night. He became distant, withdrawing not just from her but from everyone around him. Kathleen's unease grew, and she knew she couldn't ignore it any longer. One day, while Gilberto was at work, Kathleen took a drastic step. She installed spyware on his computer, desperate to uncover the full extent of his activities. What she discovered would confirm her worst fears. If you're captivated by this chilling tale, hit the like button and share it with friends who love a good scare. The story is just beginning, and the darkest secrets are yet to be revealed. Kathleen's life had already begun to unravel, but the revelations that came from her decision to install spyware on Gilberto's computer turned her worst fears into a waking nightmare. While she had suspected something sinister was brewing, the depth and darkness of what she discovered went far beyond anything she could have imagined. The software immediately began logging Gilberto's activities. his websites, his chats, even the images he downloaded. Kathleen sat at her kitchen table with her laptop, scrolling through the reports with trembling hands. The screen displayed logs from websites that weren't just disturbing, they were horrifyingly specific. These weren't mere forums for people to vent their frustrations or share dark jokes. These were communities that thrived on grotesque fantasies, and Gilberto wasn't just a bystander. He was an active participant. What struck Kathleen the hardest wasn't the vile content. It was the personal nature of some of the conversations. She found photos of herself saved on his computer, photos she didn't even remember him taking. Alongside them were detailed messages between Gilberto and anonymous users. In these chats, he described scenarios involving Kathleen and even some of her close friends. The level of detail was chilling, as if he had rehearsed these thoughts over and over in his mind. Her breath caught as she read a particular thread where Gilberto shared a picture of one of her co-workers, labeling it with a chilling caption, "She'd be perfect for what we talked about." Kathleen's stomach churned. What had begun as a suspicion had spiraled into undeniable evidence that her husband was harboring obsessions that could put her and others at risk. In one of the chats, an anonymous user asked Gilberto if he was ready to act on their plans. His response made Kathleen's blood run cold. "I'm working on it. It's all about timing." Kathleen couldn't stay in the apartment a second longer. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the curtains made her feel like the walls were closing in. She packed a small bag for herself and Josephine, and within an hour she was on a flight to her parents' home in Nevada. The entire journey felt surreal. Josephine babbled innocently in her seat, oblivious to the storm her mother was navigating. Kathleen's mind raced with questions. Had she caught this in time? Was she overreacting? Or worse, was she already too late? At her parents' house, Kathleen finally felt safe enough to think clearly. Her father, a retired police officer, noticed her trembling hands and distant gaze. "What's going on, Kathleen?" he asked gently. It took her hours to explain everything. By the end, her father's face was pale and his jaw was set in a grim line. "You need to report this," he said firmly. "This isn't just about you. He's a danger to others." Kathleen hesitated. Despite everything, Gilberto was still the man she had loved, the father of her child. But the weight of her father's words settled heavily on her chest. She knew he was right. The following day, Kathleen contacted the FBI. She provided them with her laptop, the spyware logs, and every piece of evidence she had gathered. The agents listened intently, their faces growing graver with each passing minute. They assured Kathleen that she had done the right thing and promised to investigate thoroughly. What Kathleen didn't know was that Gilberto's activities had already caught the FBI's attention. He wasn't just participating in dark forums, he was also accessing restricted databases through his position as a police officer. Investigators discovered that he had used his badge to search for information about potential targets, women he fantasized about, including Kathleen's friends and co-workers. This abuse of power elevated the case to a national level. The FBI's investigation into Gilberto moved quickly. Within weeks, they had amassed a mountain of evidence, chat logs, emails, and even drafts of what appeared to be step-by-step plans. One particularly chilling file was titled Perfect Getaway. It detailed how to abduct a woman without leaving a trace, complete with suggestions for tools, locations, and methods to avoid detection. In October 2012, agents decided it was time to act. They staged an elaborate operation to arrest Gilberto without raising suspicion. On a crisp autumn afternoon, Gilberto received a phone call from a man claiming to be his insurance agent. "Someone hit your car in the parking lot," the caller said. "You might want to check it out." Gilberto, frustrated but curious, walked outside. The parking lot was quiet, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows. He scanned the rows of cars but saw nothing unusual. As he turned to head back inside, 3 men in suits appeared seemingly out of nowhere. "Gilberto Valer," one of them said. It wasn't a question, it was a statement. Gilberto froze. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice shaky. "We're with the FBI," the man replied. "We need to talk." The news of Gilberto's arrest spread quickly, and the media latched onto the sensational story. Headlines branded him the Cannibal Cop, a moniker that turned him into both a source of public fascination and horror. As the details of the case emerged, they painted a picture of a man leading a double life, an upstanding officer by day and a participant in unspeakable fantasies by night. During the trial, prosecutors laid out the evidence with chilling precision. They argued that Gilberto's online activities weren't just idle fantasies. His detailed plans, access to law enforcement databases, and his correspondence with other users suggested intent. "This wasn't just talk," the prosecutor said during her opening statement. "He was preparing to act." The defense, however, took a different approach. They argued that Gilberto's actions, while disturbing, were confined to the digital realm. "This is a man struggling with stress, using the anonymity of the internet as an outlet," his lawyer said. "There's no evidence that he intended to harm anyone." As the trial progressed, the courtroom became a battleground of ethics and law. Could someone be punished for their thoughts? Did fantasies, no matter how vile, constitute a crime if no action was taken? The jury was tasked with navigating these murky waters, and their decision would set a precedent that extended far beyond Gilberto's case. Kathleen watched the trial unfold from afar, her heart heavy with conflicting emotions. She had once loved this man, trusted him, built a life with him. But as the evidence piled up, it became clear that the person she thought she knew had been a facade. On the final day of the trial, the jury delivered their verdict: guilty. Gilberto was convicted of conspiracy to kidnap, a charge that carried a significant prison sentence. For Kathleen, the verdict brought a sense of relief, but also a lingering sadness. The man she had loved was gone, replaced by someone she could barely recognize. But the story didn't end there. This tale is one of betrayal, fear, and the hidden dangers of the digital age. What would you do if someone close to you revealed a side you never imagined? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. The courtroom may have declared Gilberto Valer guilty, but his story was far from over. While the public fixated on the sensationalized headlines, "Cannibal Cop Sentenced," the FBI's investigation continued to unravel layers of darkness that extended far beyond him. What had initially seemed like an isolated case quickly revealed itself as a window into a hidden world of online depravity, where the line between thought and action blurred in the shadows of anonymity. Gilberto's imprisonment and the battle for freedom. For Kathleen, the verdict provided some closure, but her life remained overshadowed by the trauma of her discovery. Raising Josephine as a single mother in Nevada, she grappled with fear, doubt, and the residual ache of betrayal. Meanwhile, Gilberto began serving his sentence, his life reduced to the cold monotony of a prison cell. Yet, even behind bars, he refused to let his story end there. Through his defense team, Gilberto filed an appeal, claiming his conviction was unjust. "I never acted on anything," he argued. "It was all fantasy, nothing more." The appeal relied on a controversial argument. Can someone be punished for their thoughts, no matter how disturbing, if they don't act on them? This legal battle sparked nationwide debate, drawing philosophers, lawyers, and psychologists into heated discussions about the nature of guilt and intent. The appellate court's decision shocked many. On the grounds that there was insufficient evidence of actual plans to act on his fantasies, Gilberto's conviction was overturned. After serving 21 months, he was released back into the world, a free man, though far from vindicated in the court of public opinion. The ripple effect of a dark obsession. While Gilberto walked free, the FBI ramped up its efforts to dismantle the underground networks he had been part of. The investigation uncovered a labyrinthine system of websites, encrypted forums, and private chat rooms. These digital spaces weren't just hubs for sharing vile fantasies. They were breeding grounds for connections that often spilled into the real world. Agents found that many users, emboldened by anonymity, had begun organizing meetups and plotting crimes. Through covert surveillance, they identified dozens of individuals who were actively working to turn their fantasies into reality. These arrests sent shockwaves through communities across the country as seemingly ordinary people were unmasked as participants in this shadowy subculture. One case stood out. A man from Florida, a former schoolteacher, was arrested after FBI agents discovered his connection to Gilberto's online group. His hard drive contained detailed plans for a series of abductions, complete with names, locations, and logistical outlines. "These weren't just fantasies," an agent later remarked. "They were blueprints." The FBI's operation, codenamed Shadow's Web, became one of the most extensive cybercrime investigations in history. It highlighted a chilling reality. While many participants may have remained confined to their thoughts, a dangerous minority were actively working to blur the line between imagination and action. Kathleen's new reality. For Kathleen, the revelations brought a mix of relief and dread. On one hand, she was grateful that the FBI was taking the threat seriously. On the other, the scope of the investigation made her realize just how close she and Josephine had come to becoming part of a tragedy. Her days were now consumed by a need for vigilance. She installed multiple security systems at her parents' house and changed her phone number. The fear that someone from Gilberto's world might seek revenge haunted her. "It's not just him I'm afraid of," she told a close friend. "It's everyone he connected with." Despite her precautions, Kathleen struggled with the emotional toll of her experience. Therapy sessions became a lifeline, helping her process the betrayal and rebuild her sense of self-worth. "For so long, I blamed myself," she admitted. "I thought, maybe if I'd noticed sooner, maybe if I'd been a better wife. But none of this was my fault. He made his choices." The broader implications. Gilberto's case became a touchstone for discussions about the ethics of punishment for thought crimes. Psychologists debated whether indulging in dark fantasies online increased the likelihood of acting on them. Some argued that such forums provided a harmless outlet, while others insisted they acted as accelerants, pushing users closer to dangerous behavior. Law enforcement faced its own set of challenges. How could they differentiate between someone who was just fantasizing and someone on the verge of action? The resources required to monitor such communities were immense, and many officers admitted they felt overwhelmed. "It's like trying to hold back the ocean with a bucket," one FBI agent confessed. Yet, amid these debates, one fact remained clear. Technology had created new frontiers for both human connection and human depravity. The anonymity of the internet allowed people to explore their darkest impulses without fear of judgment, but it also created spaces where those impulses could fester and grow. Gilberto's new life. After his release, Gilberto attempted to rebuild his life, though the stain of his infamy followed him everywhere. He moved to a small town, avoiding large cities where his face might be recognized. He published a memoir titled Raw Deal, My Side of the Cannibal Cop Story, which framed him as a victim of overzealous prosecution and media sensationalism. The book sold moderately well, but its reception was polarizing. Supporters praised it as a sobering look at the dangers of criminalizing thought. Critics, however, saw it as a self-serving attempt to profit from infamy. "He's not a victim," one reviewer wrote. "He's a man who got caught and found a way to twist the narrative." Gilberto's attempts to reintegrate into society were met with mixed results. Some people avoided him entirely, while others sought him out, some out of curiosity, others out of shared dark interests. The latter group concerned Kathleen the most. What if he inspires someone else? She wondered aloud to her therapist. What if his story makes someone think they can get away with it too? A cautionary tale. As the years passed, Gilberto's story faded from the headlines, but its impact lingered. For Kathleen, it became a cautionary tale she would one day share with Josephine. "It's not just about monsters," she planned to tell her daughter. "It's about recognizing the warning signs, trusting your instincts, and never being afraid to ask for help." The case also served as a wake-up call for law enforcement, psychologists, and society at large. It forced people to confront uncomfortable questions about morality, technology, and the power of the mind. If someone's thoughts could be so vivid, so detailed, that they seemed ready to leap into reality, where did we draw the line? Perhaps the most haunting takeaway was this: the monsters we fear aren't always hiding in the shadows. Sometimes they're sitting across the dinner table, wearing the face of someone we thought we knew. Did this story leave you shaken? Make sure to subscribe to Nightmare Narratives for more tales that challenge your sense of safety. Hit the notification bell so you'll never miss a chilling story like this one. Stay vigilant, stay haunted.